Similarities till yesterday, except we didn't quite make it into positive territory, but certainly not as bad as we feared earlier on the session when we're down over 1%.
James, it's a pretty good result by the Australian market given the fears around Europe at the moment, especially with those Spanish bond yields at unsustainable levels. And to see the Australian market down just 0.2% while we saw European markets tumble once again overnight and the US market also down around about 1% is a fantastic result. It does look like the inflation numbers did help a little bit, but if we have a look at the intraday graph of the Australian market, you can see that the rise really started before 11:30 when we did see those inflation numbers out, showing that core inflation remains at the lower end of the RBA range, showing that the Reserve Bank does have room to move there. But it was also a day in which some of the miners did reach 52-week lows. We saw some of our big stocks like Rio Tinto, Atlas Iron hitting a 52-week low, as well as the likes of Aquila Resources, Sims Group, as well as Link Energy. So it was a day in which we started off the mining space quite pessimistic, but by the end of the session the materials space looking quite flat and looking quite good. In fact, some stellar performances. Newcrest was up by a massive 4.6%, Fortescue up by 1.7%, but I do suspect that some of that might have been short covering because there was still an emphasis on those defensive areas. The defensive areas doing very well. CSL was up by 2%, Coca-Cola Amatil rose by 1.2%, Woolies was up, doing well, and Telstra was up by 0.8%. So Woolworths actually seeing a 52-week high again today, along with Spotless as well as CSL. So those defensives are still very much in favour with some of those material stocks. So all in all, a bit of a confusing day, especially given those concerns around Europe.
Julia, just on some of those materials and I suppose the people suspecting some short covering as maybe coming into play, is that what you'd put Fortescue's movements down to? In the end, closing up 1.7%. We saw the other day down about 4%. It was down earlier today. And it seems few people start bargain buying, and then that sort of forces people to cover short positions, and it sort of gains momentum.
Well, we have seen quite a poor performance by Fortescue over the last couple of weeks, so it is quite good to see some green on screen with Fortescue, but after its production report we have seen it being sold off quite harshly. And one of the things that we have seen have been iron ore prices coming under pressure, so those iron ore miners certainly under a lot of pressure, even though a lot of the production reports were quite positive with volumes and sales holding up. I guess the price part of the equation is what's worrying the market, and with those worries about global growth still very much in focus, not surprising that we have seen some weakness in some of those miners. It's actually quite interesting what's happening on the technical front as well. Rio Tinto's already broken a key support level, so looking quite bearish, and that stock reached a 52-week low today. But BHP Billiton is at a pivotal mark, and a lot of people watching that $30 mark to see whether that's going to hold. So I think materials are going to be very much in the spotlight in terms of the technicals this week. Fortescue having a good performance, but we'll just have to wait and see just whether that's sustained given those concerns around global growth.
And look, if we do, as you rightly say, a lot of people focusing very much on that $30 level with BHP Billiton. If we see that break down 30, below 30, and hold there and maybe drift lower, do we start to talk about the S&P ASX 200 with a 3 in front of it?
Well, we know that the ASX 200 has dipped below 4,000 a few times before, and there's been a very strong support level. I think you'd really have to see a tumble in BHP to see the ASX 200 sustain a level under that 4,000 point level, because we know once we get below 4,000 points, we do see a lot of the institutional investors coming back in, and funds really start to shift their asset allocation from cash back into equities. So it would take a very big disruption and crisis in the markets, I think, to sustain a level below that 4,000 points. BHP, some strong support at $30, then $28. Of course, if we saw it tumble to the next point of support at $24, then we could see the ASX 200 coming under substantial pressure.